Welcome to my channel where I will attempt to discuss issues of education, politics, and other things that are important to all of us today. For this first post or this first video, I want to talk about Common Core standards, specifically in regards to math. There are so many Facebook posts out there concerning the Common Core and people's apparent hatred of them. If you are on Facebook, you will often see these posts where they have worksheets that people don't understand. They're appalled. They're upset at some of the things that are being used out there, and they blame Common Core. But today I want to discuss the Common Core to dispel some myths and misconceptions. I hope that this will help some people see the Common Core in a different, more positive light. I'm focusing on the math standards today, but some of the same ideas may apply to both literacy and science. When we don't understand something, or when something is novel or different, we often dislike it, whether it's warranted or not. The best example I can think of is a child that has never, tried a food and they claim to hate it, but at some point in time when they try it and they determine, there wasn't anything to hate, it was just the idea of something different that they disliked. And I believe that's the case with Common Core for many people. They just don't really understand what the Common Core is and what it is meant to do. So the Common Core standards basically have a variety of goals. The framers of these standards attempted to develop these benchmarks for a few reasons. But the ones I want to focus on today, I just want to focus on two. First, the Common Core standards were meant to ensure continuity of student knowledge and skills from one place to another. So a fifth grade student from Alaska would be at a similar spot in her or his learning as someone from New Jersey, Wyoming, Florida, etc. Basically, previously, before the Common Core, every district, every state had different standards that they adhered to, and so you might have a student that would come from another state that was either significantly behind or significantly ahead of other students, and that presents a lot of challenges that the Common Core attempted to resolve by having a uniform set of ideas and skills and knowledge that students need to know. Secondly, in regards to math Common Core standards, the framers wanted to promote conceptual understanding in addition to the mathematical rules that most of us learned in school. So for example, we all know, or most of us should know, that in order to divide fractions, you invert and multiply. However, if I was to wager a guess, I would say that most people cannot explain why that is so. And of course, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that today because that would take a significant amount of time. But we know the rule, but we don't know how it works. Similar to, we all know that you cannot divide by zero, but very few people can articulate why that rule exists, why it makes sense. So the Common Core standards were meant to promote conceptual understanding because when you know the rules, that's great, and you can apply them, but only if the situation or the numbers follow certain other rules. So in other words, you might know that you have to invert and multiply to divide fractions, but many people can only do that if it's on paper, and it's a very specific set of problems. But when they're trying to cook and they're trying to divide fractions, add fractions, subtract fractions, whatever the case may be, they cannot apply it because they don't understand the concept of fractions. I would be willing to bet that most of you really fear fractions. You hate fractions. Most people hate fractions, but they are very logical, they're beautiful, and the rules were meant to simplify things, but in order to really appreciate the rules, you have to understand the concept behind them. So the Common Core standards attempt to bridge the gap between the concept and the rule, which leads me into the two misconceptions and myths. And that's what a lot of these Facebook posts are about. People post these things on there that, our teachers are, messing everything up, and Common Core messed everything up, and the whole world's coming to an end because we're using this worksheet. The first misconception is that Common Core is a curriculum. People look at a worksheet or a certain item that was developed from the Common Core that was meant to serve as an example of how you help students understand the concept. And so people think the Common Core is saying you have to take this worksheet that has these jumps between numbers and you have to break it down into 100s, 10s, 1s. You have to break everything down. But in reality, that's just a suggestion of the Common Core. The aim of the Common Core is to develop conceptual understanding. It is not a curriculum. It does not it does not mandate how one teaches these things. I can teach conceptual knowledge without necessarily having to use the specific things outlined on some of these worksheets. And I do that in a variety of ways, but I can promote that conceptual understanding in a way that makes me comfortable and makes sense to my students. That being said, there are so many teachers out there that do not have a fundamental knowledge of mathematical concepts. And so when they look at Common Core, they think that this is something they have to implement. It has to be done this exact way. And in reality, it's just an example that they provide that can work if you know how to use it. If you're trying to, drive a nail with a screwdriver, you're going to have a hard time. It's just one tool, and you have to know how to use it. So when you're driving a nail, you use a hammer rather than the screwdriver. When you're using Common Core, you have to understand the concepts in order to use some of these suggestions that they have. But there are other ways of doing it as well, which leads me into the second misconception or myth, and that is that Common Core forces teachers to teach everything in a scripted, outlined manner, and that is not the case at all. They're standards, they're benchmarks, they're points that we want our students to meet. We want our students to know how to add and multiply and subtract and divide fractions by 5th grade. But it does not tell teachers exactly how they have to do it. And that is one of the misconceptions. I can teach those things, and I often teach them in an order that is markedly different than what a lot of the textbooks advocate for, because I understand the concepts, I understand the rules. And so for me as a teacher, when I teach fractions, I actually start with multiplication and division and then move into addition and subtraction. Whereas a lot of the books do addition and subtraction first and then multiplication and division. So I mix things up, but as long as my students are hitting those benchmarks of the Common Core standards, then I have done my job. And so that's the second misconception, is that teachers are forced to do something a certain way, and they're not. The Common Core was meant to say, look, by 5th grade, all 5th grade students should be able to do A, B, and C. Here are some suggestions that we feel are worthy of teaching in the classroom. But if you know something that works better, then by all means do it. So the Common Core, and I believe that the framers of the Common Core would agree with this statement. They know it to be true. The Common Core is not perfect. There are competing theories of education. We all try to do our best. But at the end of the day, there's no perfect solution to teaching all children. They're different. They come from diverse backgrounds. They have massively different socioeconomic backgrounds. So there's no cookie cutter approach. But at the same time, we have to kind of be on the same page as to what we're trying to accomplish. And that's what the Common Core aims to do. It puts us on the same page. But it's not perfect. No standards, no curriculum will ever be perfect. No teacher is perfect. We do the best that we can do. And in order to do what we need to do to serve our students, we need to put the student first. And Common Core allows for that. It allows for differentiation. It allows for novel approaches to teaching. But it just wants students to, kind of be in the same area at the same time. And I think that makes sense. Is it perfect? No. Can we make improvements to it? Of course. But with anything that is tied to education, government, all of those things, it takes time. And we have to gather the data and find out, how is this working? And if it's not working, what can we do to make it better? So rather than posting these things and saying, Common Core is terrible, a better understanding should help us to at least appreciate what teachers are going through, but also at the same time appreciate that the Common Core standards are not necessarily this evil harbinger of the downfall of American education. We will continue to attempt to improve these things. I'm sure at some point in time someone will have something different that will replace it. But until then, teachers and parents need to be invested in trying to make the best education they can for their students and understand what the Common Core standards really are. Excuse me. So I hope you have a better idea of the Common Core standards after this video. Please let me know what you think in the comments section, and please have a productive and blessed day. Thank you.